and I think it is still relevant, regardless of the current efforts, that the magnet program suffered from inadequate supervision and monitoring by the district and by its boards for years. I think this is hard to dispute. So we do not institutionally occupy the high ground on this issue. I think that is still a relevant fact. So as I say, I'm just asking whether that is a factually accurate account from whoever here can speak to that.
I have no idea.
Dr. Sanchez?
We can follow up with a campus principal and ascertain what their perspective is on that statement.
So you don't feel you know the answer to that?
No.
All right, I'm done. Thanks.
I'm trying to figure out if it's been appropriate for TUSD staff to be pushing individuals to sign petitions for this.
I don't think our people should ever push people to sign petitions, period.
Okay, well, they're doing it. So I'm just, hey, and my problem with some of this is we're now, again, we're feeding into this, and we're pissing these people off. And I think we're heading for a fight that we're going to end up losing. And we're going to be losing because of our arrogance. So, thank you.
The other thing is I have a bit of a concern with Mr. Hicks' questions, comments about, just a couple hours ago we were talking about making comments about our principals. And here we are. I don't know where your evidence is or who told you, Mr. Hicks, but the idea that, that it's the principals or staff that are pushing petitions or whatever it was that he was referring to. I know the folks in the community at Ochoa, and I know for a fact that those folks are fairly well organized, and I would imagine that they would be the ones that would be doing their democratically entitled, activity to go out there and get support for something that they're not crazy about. So I think it'd be better if we had the facts and we had some evidence if we're going to say that our principals or staff are pushing these petitions. I don't want to put our staff that had the courage to come here and say, look, we put together a plan over 8 months and we're not given an opportunity to do that. I think it took a lot of courage for our principals to come here and do that. And they're trying to do their best work, their due diligence to make those plans work. So I'm a little concerned with comments like that because I don't know, I haven't heard that our principals or staff are doing that. I would imagine that it would be the folks, the parents. If I was a parent in Ochoa still, I'd be spearheading that if I wasn't a board member. So I just want to make sure that we're careful in making those kinds of statements.
Dr. Stegman.
I have 3 points. So there's been a lot of emphasis on achieving clarification from the court. I guess in a broad sense, it's a clarification about who's running the district or making certain sets of decisions. So over the past several years, when we have been in conflict with the special master on various points, how often do we win that debate in this court?
Well, we've never gotten a ruling on that particular issue, the scope of review, the scope of judicial authority, but we have not won much at all. And so one of the questions is, okay, then we're particularly confused about the rules given the case law that we think applies. So, dear court, will you address the scope of review? And that's the phrase that's sort of used in our request for hearing.
No, I understand that, but I feel that it doesn't take much reading between the lines to understand how the court feels about this issue. And I think it's a fair question to ask at this point, who is running up the litigation costs in this case, honestly? And I'm thinking that
Dr. Stegman, we've never initiated any of these disputes. These are petitions that have been filed by others to which all we've done is respond.
Well, I understand that formally speaking, of course, every time the special master wants something, I mean, he is initiating that. But I don't know. I'm concerned, and I think the court expressed a similar concern a few months ago about the where the litigiousness is coming from here, if in practice. Secondly, you put a lot of emphasis on and I'll just add to that, and I think it is still relevant, regardless of the current efforts, that the magnet program suffered from inadequate supervision and monitoring by the district and by its boards for years. I think this is hard to dispute. So we do not institutionally occupy the high ground on this issue. I think that is still a relevant fact. Okay, my second point was you've put a lot of emphasis on the conference on the 5th and 6th. So who is participating in that conference? Can you say a little more about that?
Sure. That will, the Dr. Holly's coming to town, as are the council for the Mendoza. So Juan Rodriguez with Muldef and Lois Thompson, their cooperating attorney, Proskauer. I think you've met those folks before. Mr. Salter should be here. I believe DOJ is participating by phone this time, which I find disappointing. I mean, one of the reasons that we initiated these, the first one was a year ago. Well, this gives you kind of an example of how sometimes crazy the case is. You know, we called it the DSEG Summit or something, and that sort of came a little tongue-in-cheek, a little, because Dr. Sanchez had invited people at the end of the first day of work. We'll go over to Thunder Canyon and I will buy everybody the first. Because the idea is if we can forge relationships. This is shortly in the wake of President Obama's, beer summit with Republican congressional leaders or whatever it was. I mean, truly, that's kind of how the conversation went. Well, as we extend the invitation for this meeting, we get a complaint from counsel, one of the plaintiffs' counsel saying, I object to calling these a summit. All right, we'll call it the, DSEG meeting. And then we got one from somebody else. I object to calling it DSEG. So it's not like the USP convening. I don't know what it is. But I mean, that's kind of, it's just sort of become this impossible. And so the hope is in these meetings is that somehow the face-to-face humanity of it all can prevail. And I actually wish we were meeting more often, but I know we had proposed quarterly. The special master is wanting, preferring something more biannual.
And so you mentioned the DOJ, the two plaintiffs groups, the special master.
And us. Yeah, I mean, it's really
And
just
us
the
means
parties.
who from the district?
Well, depending on the agenda item, I mean, I will probably attend the lion's share of it, and I think Adrian Vega will be there also. But depending on the topic, for example, the section on magnet schools, I think Richard Foster is going to be in for a fair amount of that. Human resources for recruiting and retention. So we're going to sort of rotate people in on an as needed basis. There's been no discussion of board member attendance, if that was the question, though that's certainly something if y'all can work out around your more limitations. Or, I know that was an issue in the 1 year.
And my third point is, and this is picking up on my third and final point, or maybe I guess this is more of a question, picking up on what Mr. Hicks was saying. So I want to read about 3-4 sentences from a letter that's circulated widely, originating on the plaintiff's side. And I just want staff's assessment over whether the statements made in these 3-4 sentences are correct. I'm not well positioned to say whether these are accurate statements. So, and this concerns Ochoa. So on Wednesday, September 16th, parent-teacher conferences were held at Ochoa, the letter says. During the conference, parents were presented with 2 documents and 1 petition to sign. Parents were asked to review the documents and to follow up as requested. Parents were also asked to sign the petition which was placed before them during the parent-teacher conference, which requests that MALDEF provide legal representation to parents. So as I say, I'm just asking whether that is a factually accurate account from whoever here can speak to that.
I have no idea.
Dr. Sanchez?
We can follow up with the campus principal and ascertain what their perspective is on that statement.
So you don't feel you know the answer to that?
No.
All right, I'm done. Thanks.